Despite being the second most successful Panzer ace in history and having destroyed more than 150 enemy tanks, Otto Carius is surprisingly not very well known. Born on 27 May 1922 in Zweibrucken, southwest Germany, Carius was destined for a life of war. Despite both his father and brother serving as Wehmact officers, Carius's journey to follow in their footsteps was not a straightforward one. Rejected twice due to malnutrition and being underweight, Carius had success at the third time of asking, enlisting in the 104th Infantry Placement Battalion. It was during this time that, despite his father's warning of tanks being metal death traps, Carius joined the Panzer Division. Receiving both regular army and survival training, Carius became a loader on Panzer 38T tank and was assigned to the 21st Panzer Regiment of the 20th Panzer Division. His first taste of battle came in 1941 during Operation Barbarossa as the Axis powers invaded the Soviet Union. Carius later stated that the 38T's armor and guns were completely unsuitable for combat in Russia. The Germans heard terrifying stories about the new T-34 tanks, with one early encounter seeing a T-34 being directly hit more than 30 times without sustaining damage. Carius later stated that if the T-34s had been utilized correctly by the Soviets, the war could have ended in 1941. The temperature during the winter months dropped as low as -50, no winter gear was supplied to the German troops, and their black uniforms were perfect targets for the Soviets. Supplies were scarce, and troops were forced to eat frozen bread and horse meat that they cut into chunks with axes. The men were forced to live in their tanks, fleas infested the regiments, and the term hygiene ceased to exist. At one point, Carius was summoned to HQ, and when he returned clean-shaven, the other troops did not recognize him, believing a new commander had been assigned. Despite the horrendous conditions they were forced to endure, the German response to this initial disadvantage was to alter their strategy. This, coupled with the Soviets' lack of tactical ability, saw the Soviets lose the majority of their tanks in a dramatically short amount of time. On 25 May 1942, a new unit was formed. The 502nd Heavy Panzer Battalion was the first to receive the Panzerkampfwagen 6 tanks, nicknamed Tiger tanks, by none other than Ferdinand Porsche. Arriving at the Leningrad front in August of 1942, the Tigers saw combat for the first time in September of that year. They were later used around Lake Ladoga, where terrain was almost impassable and all heavy tanks attempting to make progress sustained damage. After being transferred to a new regiment in January 1943, Carius became part of a unit that over the following years claimed the destruction of more than 1,400 enemy tanks and 2,000 guns, making them one of the most successful tank battalions in history. Carius later noted that a Tiger never broke under his command due to technical problems. Second and third companies were formed in April 1943, and the arrival of 31 new Tigers brought 502 battalions up to full strength. Carius fought defensive battles during 1943 to 44, covering the Germans' retreat from Leningrad, and in 1944, his battalion fought in the Battle of Narva. Carius's reputation had grown, and he was now unofficially in charge of the 2nd Company. His main task was to support 11th Volunteer Panzergrenadier Division, Nordland, where he was warmly welcomed by its commander, Fritz von Scholz. Carius's morale was also boosted by a chance meeting with Field Marshal Walter Model, who charged Carius with not allowing any Soviet tank to pass their defensive lines. Word of Carius's exploits would soon lead to personal honors. In less than a week, and alongside Albert Kirscher, a fellow commander, 3 German heavy tanks destroyed 38 Soviet tanks and 21 guns. As a result, Carius was awarded the Knight's Cross. He had stated that he would never wear medals in peacetime, but politically, Cavaliers of the Knight's Cross had great influence and could even, at times, overrule higher-ranking officers, making this honor a useful tool for Carius. After this award, Carius's company was transferred to Dunaburg, where its main task was to repel Soviet offenses. On 22 July 1944, Carius was part of an 8-strong Tiger company that approached the village of Malinava. On such missions, Carius would carry out reconnaissance using either cars or motorcycles. Along with Kirscher, he approached the village only to find that it was already in the hands of Soviet forces, but by spearhead only. main troops were yet to arrive. Carius decided to attack the Soviets with only 2 tanks. Moments later, Carius's Tu-17 Tiger rushed towards Malinava at high speed, closely followed by Kircher's Tu-13. When Carius entered the village, the first T-34's turrets moved slowly and were quickly destroyed. They were then faced with the heavy IS-2 tanks, but the element of surprise had worked, and within 20 minutes, Carius and Kircher had destroyed 17 Soviet tanks. During the fight, 2 recipients of the Heroes of the Soviet Union were killed. One burned alive in his tank, the other shot himself to avoid being taken prisoner. Carius was again undertaking reconnaissance. From the sidecar of a motorcycle, he spotted Soviet soldiers at a nearby farm. The soldiers saw them and opened fire. Carius was shot in the leg. His driver was also hit. 3 further shots were fired at the injured Carius. 2 missed, but the third struck Carius in the throat. Carius believed he was about to die, but German troops arrived, saving Carius last minute. As he recuperated in hospital, Carius was awarded the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross with oak leaves. Despite the injury, Carius recovered to take charge of the 2nd Jagdtiger Company of the 512th Heavy Anti-Tank Battalion, where he fought on the Western Front. After being trapped in Ruth Pocket, he ordered the destruction of all heavy tank destroyers to prevent them from falling into the hands of the Allies. He surrendered to the Americans on 7th May 1945 and was released 2 weeks later. Carius later stated that after meeting with the Cavaliers of the Knight's Cross, the German people would throw eggs at them and treat them like criminals. It was common for the Cavaliers to find the word criminal graffitied on their cars, but despite this, foreigners would treat them with respect. Carius left the army behind and studied pharmacy at Heidelberg University in 1956. He later opened his own pharmacy that he named Tiga Apotheka. Otto Carius retired in 2011 and died in January 2015 at the age of 92.